Mark Harrison, a teenager on a solo backpacking trip, is suddenly transported to an alien landscape by a strange beam of light. He has to survive in the unknown new environment and explore his surroundings in order to find the light that has abducted him. His journey to find his way home leads him into battling belligerent foes and making unlikely allies. The author of the Transall Saga, Gary Paulson, hallmarked his literary career with many stories of young men surviving an untamed wilderness. This is an easy read made for a younger audience, and I for one have positive memories of reading this book when I was a kid. While decades have passed since then, I'm happy to find that my nostalgia has not led me astray. While this work fails to exert the mind or require much contemplation to understand, it feels reasonable to recommend this as comfy and a good early book for young readers. While on a week-long trip backpacking through the forests and hills, Mark stumbles into a mysterious blue beam of light descending from the sky. He wakes up in a place full of the unrecognizable, with unusual animals, off-color plants, and a permanent haze filling the sky. As a mere 13-year-old, albeit one that has studied survival techniques in his free time, he has to be observant and clever to stay alive. From his first conscious moments after encountering the blue light, Mark is beset by dangers. Aggressive buffalo-like creatures threaten to gore him. Colonies of insects attempt to eat him alive. Mostly invisible pools of quicksand nearly drag him beneath the surface. Even the very rain is bitter and hard to swallow. Luckily, not everything is so eager to kill him. Mark comes across a friendly arboreal creature that appears like a white teddy bear with monkey proportions. The monkey bear, which Mark affectionately calls Willie, knocks down resilient fruits and consumes the soft interior. Mark follows his example, and the food source is one of the most important steps to keeping himself alive. From there, he finds a cool spring flowing with fresh water and makes a shelter up in the trees to avoid the jungle floor. With Willie's assistance, Mark has the foundation he needs to persevere, and he begins to embark on daily outings to find the light, though he never succeeds. After some time, while on a trip to the spring for some water, Mark hears a confrontation coming from behind the brush. Investigating it, he finds his first signs of other intelligent life, an arrow embedded into a tree. Excited at the prospect of interacting with other people, he prepares to go out and find them. Having a general direction to set out in, he departs to find the arrow people. A few days later, he successfully finds another human, though the situation is dire. A large wolf creature is hounding a young woman who has climbed up a tree. With blood coating her leg, Mark resolves to save her life. Using the arrow he recovered and a makeshift bow he built, he shoots at the beast. Despite hitting it directly in the back, the beast turns and charges Mark. Carrying a spear alongside him, Mark braces for the assault. After being thrown to the ground with the beast crashing atop him, he is surprised to find that the creature had impaled itself upon his spear. During his celebration, he sees that the girl he rescued has made herself scarce. Searching further, Mark runs into the girl again. Mistrusting at first and speaking a different language, she eventually opens up and acts friendly. Interrupting their contact, Mark gets knocked unconscious by tribesmen who came to find the girl. After waking up in a hut with all his possessions still available to him, he finds that the villagers are friendly despite their spontaneous attack on him. They all appear strange to Mark with their webbed feet, but he is just happy to have people to talk to. Mark becomes friends with the girl, who is named Alida, and she teaches him their language. Mark spends more time with the tribe, but when newcomers arrive on mounts and with steel weaponry, the village is captured. The residents are enslaved and marched to the home of the Sook. The Sook looks slightly different to the Arrow people, but also different to Mark himself. They show no mercy to the weak during the journey, as any of the captives who fell sick or lagged behind was immediately killed. The caravan eventually reaches the Sook community, and Mark sees how much more technologically advanced they are, with windmills grinding grain and crossbows wielded by the town guard. Mark spends 3 more months as a slave, Kept by the chief and his family, the daughter, Magan, has taught him the language of the Suk, and they call their world Transall. Mark is called a savage by most of the Suk. Despite this, when the Suk describe another tribe as savage cannibals, Mark immediately believes them. When he finally finds an opportunity to free himself, he only gets a few miles away before he observes a war band approaching the Suk. They are covered in bones and even miniature heads. He instantly identifies them as the cannibals. Even though he just escaped slavery, he struggles to leave the Suk to be killed and eaten. The fact Lita is still a slave there is what finally drives him to return and warn the Suk of the impending attack. Despite their misgivings, he convinces them of the danger. Mark then has a brief skirmish with a group of the cannibals, and the injuries he received keep him from escaping to freedom. Magan bandages him up and informs him that his bravery has led the Suk to see him as an equal. He is no longer a slave. Mark spends the next few weeks training with a warrior named Sarbo. Lita is still a slave, but Mark is satisfied now that she belongs to Magan instead of her original master. Lita views Magan as especially good, but resents the rest of the Suk as slavers and no better than the cannibals that attacked us. Magan herself lied to the other Suk about Mark's attempt to escape, but she refuses to admit why she did. The ceremony to celebrate Mark's bravery was prominent enough that the chief of the village sent an invite to a man called the Merkon, the ruler of all the Suk. When Mark meets the Merkon, he mentions knowing of the light that Mark seeks and offers to help him find it. Mark is given many gifts during the celebration, despite being a slave merely weeks ago. Magan's little brother offers a very intriguing gift, the broken base of a Coca-Cola bottle. The object causes Mark to request that similar artifacts in the village be brought to him, and he realizes that he is actually still on Earth. He concludes that he has traveled forward in time, and that some great catastrophe befell humanity. Mark joins the Merkon's group, with only his tutor Sarbo following from the community. They all leave to visit a supposed shaman who knows about the blue light. Along the journey, the group gets split up by an ambush, and the Merkon and all his men disappear. Sarbo brings Mark to a local that he knows, but the man says there is no shaman nearby, and he would know if there were. Before long, they realize that everything the Merkon said was just to isolate and capture Mark. Mark and Sarbo go on to confront the Merkon, but before they can get very far, nomads capture them and imprison them in a dormant volcano. Mark makes gunpowder to create a distraction and flee, but Sarbo gets critically injured and cannot continue with him. Sarbo withdraws to the Suk village, but Mark manages to find a group of outlaws nearby. They all resent the tyrant for his abuses of power, and the group agrees to attack the Merkon's fortress by using Mark as bait. Once inside the Merkon's stronghold, Mark interrogates him about the light and where they came from. While Mark desires to return and see his family once again, the Merkon was a prisoner who prefers the power he now wields. The Merkon says that a plague wiped out most of humanity, and that nuclear war soon followed. A fight breaks out, but Mark manages to deal a mortal blow before escaping with the outlaws. The Merkon's son vows to find Mark and avenge his father. After he returns to the Suk village, he admits he has romantic feelings for his once slave master, Magan, but the pursuit of the Merkon's son and his men drives him off. He leaves the village to lead the invading soldiers away. They doggedly pursue him all the way into the jungle where Mark first established himself. All the threats that once menaced Mark are used to defeat the soldiers. A buffalo creature manages to destroy a few, insects torment others, and many struggle to escape from the patches of quicksand in their heavy equipment. Mark manages to defeat the vast majority of them, but he gets shot before he can leave the jungle. Seeking cover, the blue beam of light appears spontaneously, pulling him back to his time. The story ends with Mark becoming a doctor and spending his life researching disease. He wishes to ward off the looming apocalypse. This book was certainly a better read when I was a kid, but I don't think it was bad. The chapter length averaged less than 5 pages, with some being as short as 1, and the prose was very simple. While acknowledging the target demographic for this book, I'll say that I have one primary criticism, and that's that the content struggles to uphold my suspension of disbelief. Mark Harrison began the story as a 13-year-old that studied survival techniques in his spare time. No one else in his family were outdoorsmen. They didn't even join him on his backpacking trip, but I guess he did a lot of research. The first day he's in Transall, he evades a buffalo creature by leaping up to a branch and pulling himself over it. From that, I deduced that he was pretty athletic. Yet, later on, in chapter 13, he ruminates on how he originally was, and I quote, a chunky kid and hadn't really been in very good shape. So, the kid has low self-esteem. Except, with his behavior and later responses to stress, he appears excessively sure of himself. He broke his ribs in a near-lethal fall, but he immediately asks Willie the monkey bear for an aspirin. After being abducted by the Arrow people and waking up in their village, he tells an old woman who feeds him a weird substance, "My compliments to the chef. As a kid, it didn't bother me, but it now seems he was either poorly written or he's poorly adjusted. Considering how he developed romantic feelings for his slave master, Magan, and never freed his friend Lita, he could be crazy." Actually, during the climax at the end, he decided to Tarzan swing from one tree to another using the vines, even though the last time he tried that, he broke his ribs. Definitely crazy. I misremembered Willie as having a bigger part in the story, and he's barely in it. I also remembered Mark as older, but I guess since I was younger than him when I read it, I just viewed him as more mature. In any case, while I believe the Transall Saga is not particularly exceptional, its simple prose and examples of overcoming great adversity make it suitable for all ages. It's pretty much a YA version of John Carter of Mars. With repeated examples of getting over obstacles and enduring whatever hardships that may occur, the Transall Saga is a book made for youth who want to experience independence and authority vicariously through the stories they read. While not immaculately written, it was good enough for my child mind to remember all these years later, and for the genre it's in, I think that's pretty good. If you have read the Transall Saga, what did you think about it? Are my compliments or criticisms blown out of proportion? Let me know in the comments below. I'm gonna give this book to my niece the next time I see her, and I'll be sure to add her thoughts to the description when she's finished. No better reviewer for a young adult novel than her.